There is always a path. It is shrouded in mystery. A journey's end. A distant dream. Few things are certain. But in the depths of this chasm, a presence awaits. Through the blackest of shadows, all must pass. And for failure, the dawn shall never come.
The following program may contain coarse language, suggestive dialogue, and discussion of violent imagery and sexual situations. It is intended for mature listeners who can tell the difference between facts and opinions.
Hello and welcome, everyone. And welcome to another episode of the Toonami Faithful podcast. I am your host today, CJ, and with me I have...
Paul Pescrillo, the founder of ToonamiFaithful.com.
Alongside...
editorial writer for ToonamiFaithful.com, Kuro.
And we have a new member and some fresh meat joining us tonight on today's podcast for their very first episode.
Hey, it's Brittney Cooper, your social media person from Toonami Faithful.
One of the many that we've needed desperately through the years. So, Brittney,
and doing a super job.
Yeah, it's so awesome that you could finally join us for a podcast. It has been a long time coming, and thankfully you can join us as we talk about Housing Complex C, which I'm sure you have to be pumped.
And thankfully, Darrell's not here to harass you.
Well, I mean, hopefully it won't ever come to that. But
he was so cool with my first time, so I think he would be.
You survived.
I had the misfortune of being on my first episode with Darrell when it was an episode where Esdeath was cuddling with Tatsumi. So it was a very, very raunchy kind of night. Sure. Hashtag Esdeath did nothing wrong. But
boy, that takes me back.
I know, right? Back to a simpler time of Toonami that I'm sure fans desperately miss. And I mentioned that because we actually got a bit of news today, and it's something that we have been waiting for a little bit since the schedule recently was blanked out for, obvious reasons, for surprises and things along those lines. But we now know how the lineup will look starting in November. With that, No More Housing Complex C to kick off the block, obviously. That just wrapped up, as we'll be discussing it further. And instead, we'll be getting a rerun of My Hero Academia's 5th season. Many people were wondering if it was a typo, and they got the 6th season. Sony laughs at your inability to read what the schedule actually said. But with that, they will be getting Made in Abyss the 2nd season at 12:30 to follow. Yashahime will follow at 1, with One Piece, Naruto Shippuden, and Gendy Tartagashi's Primal will round off the night at 2:30. Looks like the block has shrunk by an hour. Daylight saving times, they are obviously going to replay the second hour, or 2 a.m. again, and they'll be having Primal air on that. Not sure if it's season 1 or season 2, but we will see if Toonami is now going from midnight to 3. And there will be an article, breaking down all the changes. The lineup shrinks and expands all the time, so this is nothing new. But it is a very interesting type of direction they decided to go to, especially considering with Made in Abyss, the 3rd film is required watching to understand what goes on in the 2nd season. So, We also made sure to link the High Dive page as well as Hulu's page where you can find the third movie if you want to check it out. And I highly recommend that if you are interested in Made in Abyss to check it out to make sure you understand what is going on when it airs on Toonami. But DeMarco did try, Toonami tried to get the rights for it. Wasn't happening, so we get what we get. It's we either get second season with nothing, with no context, or we get nothing. So it's like I'm fine with grabbing just that, just to get something new. But yeah, so not the greatest news, obviously, but at least we got a little bit of something, which I'm sure everyone here is at least happy that it's a new Sentai show, just a new show, period, no reruns. I know I personally will miss the One Piece hour just because it really felt like the series was going at a nice pace, and one episode a week can feel like a drag and a slog. So I'm definitely like, you could have kept an hour and just kept the shonen hours thing going, but what can you do?
Oh, I could watch double Naruto for the rest of my life. And I'm not an alarmist. I want to say that I'm not thinking this is anything like the end of Toonami, because I don't think it is. I think this is a tragically transitional period, and I'm really glad that we got a Sentai show, because we were talking about that a lot. I confess I'm really not interested in watching Made in Abyss 2. Do not base your decision on watching this off of my opinion, because I am just one of those people. I saw the movie and it was very off-putting to me personally, but absolutely watch and make your own decision, make your own opinion. But I'm fine with watching season 5 again. I actually don't remember. It's been so long, and I don't think I finished it. I think my DVR misrecorded. So I'm cool with that. But it's a little frustrating though that like we're getting this kind of blowback from all the mess going on in the industry still. It's just, I know Jason's trying, and I know that they have original series, and this last one was so fantastic. I'm putting all my faith in their original stuff when it comes, and I think that's really going to be the future of Toonami. Like a couple of Sentais, maybe they get one thing from Funimation, who's now Crunchymation, and then they get 2 or 3 of their own stuff. I don't know. That's kind of my outlook.
And
Paul, you mean the evil empire?
The New York Yankees? What? But Paul,
no, that's not the evil empire.
Hey, they're not going to the World Series, so we can leave them. We can leave them behind.
Yeah, the Houston Cheaters are, but we're not talking about sports.
I know. I it's my quota. You got to add that in there at least when I host on every podcast. But Paul, weren't you the one that said that Jason mentioned that more things should be coming soonish, or was that someone else?
Sketch said something about it.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay. I thought. I thought you did too.
That was part of that was like the second tweet that he said after they said, because I was the one that shared that they were they couldn't get the movie.
Gotcha.
So I mean, it's interesting. See, the one thing that's very interesting to me, because as you can see, Jason is very, very honest these days. And he'll tell you, oh, yeah, we didn't really get this, or we didn't really get this. Nothing about My Hero Academia Season 6. Nothing about Bleach. Nothing about anything else that everybody's been asking about. So it's kind of like, okay, are we playing this? We're going to wait a couple episodes and then put it on the air kind of thing?
Well, I take this also. Remember when Viz was very late to announcing where Bleach was even going to simulcast? And like they were like, you took your sweet time, and Viz was like, well, yeah, not like there's a ton of people that we need to work with, So I think it's just the same thing. And now it's even worse for Toonami because it's adding a whole nother section kind of thing for them. But Brittney, how do you feel at least about the recent news that just broke today?
Man, I'm surprised Made in Abyss Season 2 was on there, to be honest. I mean, it's what we have now. I'm not mad at the lineup. It's something out there. If people want Bleach, they can watch it on their own time.
See, I like that. I totally agree. If you like something, you will find a way to watch it. That is something I highly...
Or protest it, which one.
Well, there's that too, but it's one of the things where if you like Toonami, you'll watch, and if you don't anymore, just don't. I think that's fine. But enough of the negative stuff on that because honestly, I really don't care about the schedule. It's still there. That's what really matters most to me. It's not going anywhere. So we're going to be talking about Housing Complex C, which just wrapped up. And
Oh my god.
quite the yeah. Kuro kind of accurately describes how I think most of us probably feel of it. What was that? That was I don't even know how to explain. It was a lot.
That was a 2-hour movie.
It was amazing.
It certainly
was amazing, and I need to watch it again because there was so much in that episode. So much.
I don't want to say I don't want to agree with other people on Twitter, but Colt's right when he says this was a 2.5-hour movie.
Well, I mean,
hate to say
when you
it.
put all the episodes together, it does equal 2 hours. So,
I mean, it'll be a little bit less, but yeah.
But you get what I'm saying. 4:30.
I mean,
minutes.
it does make for a good, and I don't think that's a bad thing that it is essentially a film. I think that'll make the marathon next week perfect, especially for Halloween.
It'll definitely go by really fast. But before we really sink our teeth in the 4th episode, which is obviously, the big reveals and everything going on, Brittney, you haven't been on any of the previous episodes of Housing Complex C reviews. How have you felt about this series? What was your general feelings as you were watching it progress all the way through the end? We haven't obviously gotten to have your feelings for it, so tell us, share for the world and the class, how you felt about Housing Complex C.
I liked it. It kind of went over my head a little bit. It didn't scare me as I thought it would. I mean, I did have a little jump scares, but it didn't make me cry either. So,
are you a fan of horror movies or like the horror genre, whether it be in shows or the Halloween motif, like all that kind of? Is that like your thing, or is it not?
I am.
Nice.
I enjoy it. I'm the person that laughs while everybody's scared.
That is a defense mechanism that I know many people have. Paul, I wonder how Brittney would have done on our horror adjacent episode.
Probably not well.
That was scary in its own right, but so you really seem to like it. What was it about the series that made you like it? Because obviously, I know at least from behind the scenes that it's more Steven that was obviously tweeting the top half of the blog just because you're at work and things. What made you feel like, I want to make sure I'm up to date on this, I'm catching up? Like, what kind of gravitated to you to really want to consume this new Toonami original?
It's just like an unknown to me. I mean, we didn't really get much from the trailers. It was just like, ooh, tune in. It's scary. Da 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 da.
I like that. It's scary. That should be the tag on the freaking Housing Complex C promo stuff. So you really seem to like it. And I guess we could kind of go into episode 4. I did feel like a lot was thrown at people with Taka's whole discovery of what was going on with the island. A lot of fantastic stuff that I thought was foreshadowed really well. It's one of the things where I do wish Housing Complex C had one extra episode. I think it would have been really fun if episode 4 was centered around Taka kind of discovering everything, and then like it ends with him like going mad in like a kind of a jump scare kind of way, where all of a sudden like he's reading everything, he seems perfectly lucid and everything like that, and then he just loses it, and then it just cuts away for the next episode. Or episode then 5 would go into obviously what we would see later on in this episode. But honestly, Taka became my favorite character, honestly, after watching his whole discussion.
Mine too.
Like, he figured it out. And I really like that because, like, he was already kind of portrayed as, like, someone who's kind of, like, realizing everything's going awry and, like, hey, why? Instead of, like, saying, oh, yeah, things are going to hell, it's like, why are they going to hell? And it was
Taka was a star for sure.
And it was his inquisitive mind that I guess resonated with me, that I really, really liked. And it was kind of funny where, like, such innocuous little things he kind of realized, it's the year 2000. Why am I holding a fan that has 2001? Right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, why does he... And, like, he was noticing all these other things that had years further on. And I'm not necessarily as well-versed in the mythos thing. I'll definitely throw it to Kuro on that part of it. Just because, for me, my mythos is more about Greek mythology as well as Roman history, as opposed to... I have no idea where Cthulhu's actually originated, which... obviously we'll get into.
I can help it.
Exactly. So it's one of those things where, sadly, I wish that the Cthulhu stuff was more up my alley, and I think that if I was a little more well-versed with that subject, it would have a bigger hit to me, right? It'd be like the same thing if I'm, like, watching a sports anime and I'm watching one of a sport that I played as opposed to one I just watched. So it's like I have more of a deeper connection and relatability and more pathos with the anime of the sport that I've watched as opposed to the ones that I played over the ones that I've watched. And I think that's where my disconnect kind of went with it. But I'm always such a sucker for those like big reveals, and obviously I'll now throw it to Kuro on this, but like Kuro, since you really love talk as well and loving kind of the mythos of what the island of what Kurosaki Island was kind of going through and what he was able to figure out, what was it about that really just made you go like, I have a feeling that was like the starting point of where you're feeling like, oh, this was amazing, this was such a great show and things like that. But what was it about here, and why was the Cthulhu part like really kind of grabbing you the way that at least you've been acting so far on the podcast?
Okay, so I confess I am not, a fanatic of H.P. Lovecraft. And for those of you who don't know, H.P. Lovecraft was the turn of the century writer of horror and science fiction and fantasy. And he created this Cthulhu mythos where it was this alien god entity that is sort of a mixture of octopus, dragon, human, and worshipped by cultists. That was the first story. And from there, he created an entire pantheon of gods. When I was watching the series, I had seen a couple people make a connection, but I wasn't buying it. I was like, I don't know. It's in Japan. They have the whole thing about the mountain. They showed the people at the beginning. I was thinking this was something unique. And I loved the idea of, for the purpose of a horror fiction, creating an entirely new mythology just to tell a story. So that was really exciting. And I think even if you don't know anything about Cthulhu, you can still enjoy this and still like appreciate the uniqueness of how they incorporated it into this horror, because they did such a good job of doing that dead drop, that like, wait, what moment, you have where things take a turn. But really, really interesting part is the incorporation of the story that Taka figures out. He determines that there's this old god who we are able to, as the viewers, if we know about them, recognize Cthulhu. But put that aside. He recognizes that there was this older god that the fish people were worshiping and trying to revive. And then there's another god that is a reality bending god. And we kind of learn, I don't know how far, I guess everyone's watched this to give away, but Taka figures out that the reality bending god is responsible for them being in this sort of time loop. They're stuck in the year 2000, which was something else we kind of saw hints of. We were like, why are they going to the calendar? What's the significance of that? And it turns out, of course, to be Kimmy. And she's not hostile. She's not bad. I mean, she's mischievous, obviously, the fact that she's trying to maintain these people in this little bubble, but it doesn't, her reasons are her own. But then there's this sort of conflict between the followers of the other god and what they're trying to achieve and what they're trying to get, and through their idea of sacrifice. Anyway, without getting too much in the weeds, I just love the idea of using storytelling in this way to get a jolt and engage the viewer, because it doesn't matter if it's an existing mythology or not. And at first I was thinking like maybe this is some part of Shintoism before I recognized the Lovecraftian elements, because Shintoism is super complex. It's not universal. It's like every pocket has its own version. And I thought, okay, that would have been really cool if they just pulled some random folklore from some itty bitty, part of Japan and decided to incorporate that. But it doesn't actually matter. I think what matters is how elegantly it was incorporated into the story, to the fact that you didn't see it coming, really. Like, even if you had hints, it was kind of like, whoa, these are not the bad guys. This other group is the bad guys. And whoa, she's just trying to protect everybody. And whoa, like everything you thought was true from the first 2 episodes were not true. And it just made it fantastic. And I'm so over the top with this. I need to watch it again because it's really complex. But I hope I answered your question.
Yeah, no, you know the place to do it. Toonami will be having a Halloween marathon day with all of Housing Complex C and 4 episodes of The Promised Neverland this upcoming weekend, which is good. Paul, I want to come to you because obviously me and you were a bit more on the fence with the series as we were waiting for it to fully play out and things along those lines. And it still feels like a little bit difficult for me to grade. And I will finish it because I know Maki's like, give me a grade, CJ. I need to know. But how did you feel about the reveal about Yuri's family? You know, as we got further along after, obviously everything's kind of found out of like, oh, hey, by the way, Kimmy's a god. And all the moss and like everything that Taka was able to kind of explain for us. How did you feel when then all of a sudden it really kind of set the tone because like obviously like, oh, foreigners are showing up. It was just the wrong foreigners, right? But it was like all of a sudden that kind of switch where all of a sudden we go to Yuri's family and they're actually trying to kill Kimmy in the first place.
So first of all, do we say that Laser was right about this?
Laser was right.
Laser was right.
So, first of all, I agree that this could have been a 2-hour movie, 2.5-hour movie, whatever. It could have definitely used another episode. I think if you were to do it right, you could have split this episode into 2 in the right way. Especially with, I mean, obviously, if people are listening to this, they've seen it, I would hope. But, you know, them going on a rampage.
Man.
Spoilers, whatever. Them going around on a murderous rampage and finding out that they're the ones killing everybody and not Kimmy and her quote unquote mother, which obviously we find out maybe that's not the mom. I still am not clear on that one because that one's a little confusing, but whatever. So for me, it was interesting. The biggest thing for me after watching it today, because I watched it just before, I watched it a couple hours ago, actually.
Hold on. I just want to know your main thoughts before we get to like the big encompassing one. I want to know about the whole twist where all of a sudden we find out that Yuri's family are just like murderers. Because to me, like, what I mean by that is like,
yeah,
it was a bit out of place for me, and I don't mean it necessarily in a bad way. I wish that it gave more of the horror switch where all of a sudden it's like they look normal and then they turn around and then you see kind of like the scary face kind of thing.
Right.
Instead of like it kind of just turned, it almost like it just morphed a little too fast for me. And I'm curious about the whole switch of that. Like, was it something that you would say that the series needed? Did you like that aspect of it? Did you want more? Those type that's at least what I mean for this.
Again,
part.
it could have been flushed out a little bit more, but for what the series was, I think it was fine. I don't think it was something that, you know, if this was like a 12 episode or a 10 episode series, we'd probably be sitting here going, yeah, you should have done something more about this. But we're talking about 4 episodes. We're talking about a very short series. You have all this to compact into it. I was pretty fine with how they did it. I didn't think that, again, I'm going to continue to say this several times. They could have split that episode, but it's, I don't know. I think the one thing that part doesn't bother me. What bothers me is, so all these foreigners came with those 3. Did they just murder did they murder the foreigners too? Like, because
everyone's dead. I mean, technically, wouldn't Kimmy have done that when she, you know,
if they were still alive? But
right.
I feel like I figured that because there was so much moss. I mean, think about it. There was only what was there 5 or 6 of them? The original people that were at Housing Complex C. There was a shit ton of moss, so that indicated, oh, they probably stabbed the fuck out of all these foreigners, right. Which is kind of like, well, wait a minute. So, and then you kind of, you saw what was going on, because once you got to that end part, you were like, okay, well, she's trying to preserve them using, by turning them into moss, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah. So my understanding was they were murdered by by Yuri's family. And then because the reference to moss being the closest one can achieve eternity, she turned their remains into moss, but also she didn't want to upset the rest of the people there. So she was just trying to, like, instead of it being a horrific murder scene and all that, she was trying to mitigate the horror.
So, but was she trying to, like, preserve them so that they could be brought back to life? Because I mean, in a sense, and I mean, maybe I'm losing it, but couldn't she have just brought them back? Like,
Maybe.
Well, I guess if she's a reality bending god,
Yeah.
yeah,
but that wasn't. I mean,
I don't think she would want
she
to.
was, yeah, this was in this bubble. That part's a little complicated because they went by
Yeah.
that so fast. And I think you're right. Both of you were right. We're saying I would have liked this to be 2 episodes or at least
Yeah.
an hour-long episode, because having one part where they explain the mythology and then the second part where you have the horror fest where everybody's running and you have like the whiplash effect of like,
and
Yuri's families are horrible. They're bad people. And man,
yeah, and
fuck
having them and having them. I know this is gonna. I mean, I guess I like this a little bit more, but having them kill more people would kind of
Oh my god.
would kind of amplify it a little bit more to where you're like, oh
Yeah.
shit.
And here I thought
What
you
the hell
didn't
is
like
this?
horror adjacent movies, Paul.
What's that?
I thought you didn't like horror adjacent movies, Paul.
Well, I mean, if there's action and they're killing people, yeah, I'm gonna like it.
Oh my god. So you're a psychopath. Okay.
Yes,
Not
thank you.
and not just Paul. Yuri seems to be that too, because at first you thought, oh, she's friends with Kimmy. Oh, she's gonna help her out. And then we kind of see the actual side of Kimmy. Brittany, what was your kind of reaction when we kind of see the real part of Yuri? Because there was a fan noticed this on Twitter too. The opening kind of showed that Yuri wasn't all that we thought that she was, and someone was probably, oh, they're just doing that for the, horror motif, and it's like, oh wait, no, that was actually foreshadowing. What did you feel about this reveal where Yuri was actually with her parents on trying to get rid of Kimi?
I was mad. I mean, at first, I mean, when we kind of met her, she was a little bit of a bitch, but
She was just a little bit of a bitch.
I said the same thing. Oh my god.
and then as the episode go on, she became more likable, but now she's back to being a bitch.
No. She became a psycho bitch.
She really did. And I at least was like, I don't know, I think it would have been more interesting if it was like not necessarily like a split personality thing, but one where it's like she was really sweet, but then it like morphs into like some sort of mind control from her parents. Like think of all of a sudden they like say a magic word and it turns on her instant psycho side. I think that would have been a little more fun to
They really
mess around
faked
with
us
it.
out with the whole her trying to hold her father down shit. I was really mad about that. I was like, that fucking bitch.
Yeah.
What? She's just playing with us.
She really, although at the end we honestly saw that Kimi was really playing with everybody. And I'm not going to necessarily bore the whole conversation that Kimi and Yuri had with one another, because, well, honestly, every second of this show, considering how condensed it is pretty important. To me, it was just more like you find out the history of why Kimi was doing what she was doing, how silly she finds humans, that kind of thing. How about all of a sudden we saw Yuri just like go reverse? I wish that was a little more gruesome for sure, but there's a little bit of there was like,
What more did you want? That was gruesome enough.
I mean, if I had to pick between that or when we saw Rico get her arm broken in Maid of Abyss season 1, I actually think the Maid of Abyss one was.
Oh my god.
What about just before that, where's she's like, oh, let me take your father's left arm.
Oh,
let me take
and
his
then
right
the blood.
arm.
That one was pretty. That was good. That was good.
That was like, oh, okay, this bitch means business. Okay.
Yeah, when all the blood
By the way,
and body parts falling down. Yeah, that was pretty good.
So
Damn.
wait a minute. Are we can't gloss over the fact that is Kimmy really a space squid? Because
Yeah. She
like-
sees all and knows all.
so she's a space squid that came and wanted to humans.
Yes.
It's so fucking weird.
Listen.
There's a Japanese word they used, and then there was this whole stuff that Taka had figured out about the play on the words that I don't know enough about Japanese to be able to understand without seeing it a couple times. But the word that it would come from the original mythology, quote unquote, would be Yog Sothoth. But I don't think that matters. What's important is she is a squid octopus space thing, and she can bend time. And she knows all and sees all.
And as I've said before, Paul, on this podcast, we don't kink shame. If she wants to observe humans, that is her right. She's allowed to do whatever she wants. Do not turn me inside out, please.
I kink shame a little bit, but not for that. That's not a kink shaming.
And we finally get our ending where, of course, everyone's favorite character, Khan, was the lone
Yay!
survivor, of it, where he sees everything, and honestly a rather poignant ending. I felt like him discovering everything, looking for everywhere, seeing all the moss, and then seeing Kimi, play the flute, whatnot, being able to kind of like, I wouldn't know if I would say put everyone's soul at rest, but being able to do that, and then as has been hinted by the cast, crew, and others, it's good to know that the time has caught up with Kurosaki Island, right?
Can I say this? The one thing that this series actually does that a lot of anime fucks up is it actually had a good ending.
Yeah.
Oh, so you're like, okay, so you know what? We'll go right into that. So Paul, you really like the ending.
I did. I thought the ending.
Explain. Give me your reasoning now in bullet points, MLA format. This will be tested and read to the class.
Okay, so let's take, and I think I remember you saying that you loved Soul Eater. Let's take Soul Eater.
I'm not the only one, actually. There's another one person in here who absolutely adores Soul Eater.
So
I love Soul Eater.
Yeah. So
okay, then we have a third person.
Would you agree that the ending for Soul Eater was not the best?
It was not great.
Technically, I would actually say that I was fine with it. I saw it before I read, so I didn't know any better. So
all right, so then I'm going to ask Kuro.
I have to take it by when I first saw it, right? Because I don't think it's fair to like go by a hindsight thing. So before wasn't my favorite. I was indifferent, but I didn't think it was terrible till I found out.
So Kuro, what didn't you like about the ending, if you remember?
Okay, so I mean, I wouldn't have minded if they'd gone on for another 2 seasons because the story does continue. Yeah. But is that aside, like, the bravery is the word bit. Like, we've seen shonen characters have this moment of their own courage and then stand up to an overwhelming foe. But she had this whole speech about it, and it was just really outside of it just didn't fit. It didn't work with the rest of the show. It was just such a letdown with her whole like bravery. That's gonna make me win, and I'm like, okay, alrighty, then I'm done. Let's just wrap this up.
So
but I love the show. Just so we're clear,
right,
I loved
right. No, the show's good. The ending sucks, but the show's good. It's kind of along those lines. CJ, is that the anime just does something really stupid at the end where they either rush it or they do a little stupid speech that screws everything up, and you're kind of just like, no, I just wanted you to do like this final boss scene and do it the right way kind of thing. I mean, the best comparison to this ending is kind of how Parasite ended. I think Parasite had a really good ending and tied up everything nicely. Because if we remember at the end there, he almost died, and we thought that his hand was gone, his parasite, so to speak, was gone, but he ended up saving him one last time at the end before he died, so to speak. And they went off into the sunset. This one feels like it was complete too, because there was a resolution. It came together well at the end, and I think that's one of the things that kind of makes this short series, and I wouldn't say a really good series, but I would say an okay, this was not a waste of my time series. What? This was something that actually I'm going to watch again because I want to figure this completely out. It started well, it ended well, and in the middle it kind of gives you this mystery of, okay, what is going on here? So it did everything completely correct. Now, is there problems with it? Yes. Obviously, we've already talked about the two problems, the two things that it could have done a little bit better. But I mean, this ending was really good. I mean, it tied everything up. And it's interesting because the one thing that I think everybody here would probably agree with was Kimi trying to preserve those original, what was it, 5 or 6 people that were there at Housing Complex C? Was she trying to preserve them because she really liked them? Or was when she said at the end, like, all you humans disappoint me all the time? was she also talking about them? Because remember, just in the last episode, she gives what's his name? I can't think of his name off the top of my head here. She gives him that note and says, "You got to read this when the time is right." Yeah. So she gives him that and says, "You got to read this at the right time, and it will save you." And it ultimately did, because she wanted him to live, because he was a good person. That part is kind of interesting to me.
Koba. Sorry, I got it wrong.
Yeah. That's what I was like. Wait a minute. I was like, wait.
Koba. I was like, there's a KO in there somewhere. It's
yeah.
Because they nickname each other, so
yeah.
Confusing.
So, and by the way, that his alarm going off at 9 a.m. on his phone, that's kind of weird. Like, what does that mean, kind of thing? But whatever. Whenever
back into the
reality,
the 21st century. That's what I took that as.
Yeah. So it's. I think it did what it was supposed to do. Honestly, and the ending, like I said, the ending just wraps itself up.
Nice. Brittney, what about yourself? How would you feel as a whole how the series ended with episode 4? Much like what Paul was talking about. What was it, or how do you feel overall about the ambitious project that was Housing Complex C?
It could have been a little more, because it ends off with Khan just looking at the building. Maybe it should have been a little more. Maybe if somebody else came upon somebody else who may be alive, or Rubel came back or something.
So you definitely would have liked a little bit more. I definitely wouldn't say I disagree with that front, but we'll get to me last. I'm the host. I get to go last. But Kuro, what about you? I know you could not wait to talk about this series as we were texting getting ready for this episode. So what was it about Housing Complex C that really worked for you?
So one of the things I've noticed with thriller and horror, and I don't mean like absolute slasher, but with like good horror, is minimum tends to be the best. Leaving a lot up to the imagination, leaving the viewer to guess, but just giving them just enough information to infer the truth. Or figure out, or leave things just ambiguous enough. And so I was fine with I loved the way they handled the ending and even the beginning. Like, they left things just ambiguous enough to keep you guessing, and then in the end, that it would have been cool to see like someone coming upon Khan to figure out like where he stands in terms of his present. But it also was interesting to he stands up, he sees his phone, suddenly it's a smartphone and it's going off, and he looks up and the housing complex is covered in moss and vines and broken down, and like you can infer, it's aged 20 years, he's been evicted from the time loop and he's the only survivor. Like, there's a couple things you can glean from that. And so I really enjoyed what this series did. I did not expect it to be so mythology heavy, and I loved that. And then the horror aspect was really like, it was just enough for me to be able to tolerate. It wasn't like Tokyo Ghoul crap because I did not like that show. No, it was just enough of gruesome arm pulling and bloody stabbing for me to be like, okay, this is a climactic scene and that's the purpose of this. And yeah, no, I thought it was fantastic. Sure, 10 out of 10 would have been the last episode being an hour or having 2 episodes, but I would give it 8 out of 10. I was pleased for what they were. I think they accomplished for the most part what they were trying to accomplish, and I enjoyed myself watching it.
I would agree with I was thinking 8 out of 10. It comes in around there. Honestly, it's not a perfect anime by any means.
And I was going to
but
just
it's
ask you,
not
Paul,
a bad
considering before I go on to my thing, what was it about it that you think it could have improved upon, or it needed a little bit more help to make it go past 8? Because I know that you mentioned it before, but you didn't really go into it as much.
I mean, I'm being serious about the whole killing part. Like, I think
no, I knew that. I just was there anything more besides that?
So
Paul wants more gore.
No. Well, okay. So let me intelligently explain that instead of just being like, oh, I would like to see more killing.
It's so much funnier that way.
So, well, yes, that's why I was going for it. But let me put my intelligent hat on for once.
Just gotta find it.
So
it's on a shelf somewhere collecting dust.
yeah,
I'm sorry. I'm not.
I mean, when you have kids, that's what happens. So your brain just goes. Blah, 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 blah. But anyways,
listeners, it's a sport to rat on Paul a little bit on this podcast. That's what we do. It's kind of like written in the Toonami Faithful contract.
I don't know about that contract. I'm gonna have to change that. But anyways, so we've been kind of saying it a couple times. So let me just kind of solidify it. Episode 4 could have been just what was that old guy's name again? I'm very bad with names and I'll say
Taka.
it wrong anyway. Okay, Taka. So if episode 4 was just Taka speaking and then it ended with, him
going crazy and finding out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then his friend there, Kimmy goes and gives you can include that whole first half basically just in one episode. Expand it out a little bit, whatever.
What's funny, Paul? I actually disagree, and not necessarily not on the split part, but I honestly think it would have been better if we ended with him just like a split second of him showing that he went mad, and then like the next episode started with Kimmy giving the note where he discovered everything, like the Taco wrote kind of thing on it. But that's just splitting hairs. But I want to at least plant that in your head because for me,
that could have been good too. But...
Yeah, I love the like. That horror aspect where all of a sudden like everything's normal, then all of a sudden it's just like snap and he just turns into like he goes insane, right? That's
let me give you my vision.
Yeah.
So everything that happens where he puts the belt on, goes out, starts knocking on Kimmy's door, and then gets stabbed, it ends there. And then we come back, we the episode 5, all of a sudden we see the residents like, we start hearing the residents getting killed, and you see more killings because obviously, as we saw, there's a lot of fucking moths everywhere. So obviously, these 3 went on a fucking killing spree. You get a little bit more of that. They see him knocking on Kimmy's door, and they stab him. Obviously, the father stabs him. Obviously, and then we go into all of this, and then we just go through the second half of that episode. I think that would be a little bit better. And when I say like killing people, you want to kind of, I don't want to say, because it sounds really fucked up to say this, but build a story around them killing people. Because remember, when they came there, they were said that, oh, we're doing an experiment. We're doing research. Okay, what is your experiment? What is your research? So explain that a little bit more. Obviously, it's simple. They're worshiping a different god, and they're going to kill all these people they brought with them, including the people that were already living there at Housing Complex C. But if you were to explain that a little bit more too, even though it's not really needed in this series, but if you were to put that a little bit more in this, in the final episode, and then just do what you had, I think that would have worked out great. That would have tied it up in a nice little bow, and this definitely would have been like between a 9 and a 10, honestly. That's just my view on it, honestly, but I think that would have been a good way to do it. Side note, that one dude that left is probably
Rubel.
Probably is the smartest person of the series because he sensed something was going on. Was like, fuck this, I'm getting out. I would have liked to know, and obviously people can come and go as they please through this bubble, as you guys have said, but without like any aging happening. But that would be interesting if after he leaves the island, all of a sudden he starts to age 20 years. You know what I mean? Because technically they're in the year 2000, but there again, what's his name didn't age once she changed the island back to normal time. So it's like,
well, they came from outside and then they entered the bubble.
Right.
So maybe they just go back to their normal. I'm curious to know what CJ and Brittney rate it out of 10.
Brittany, you have to go first.
Yeah, 'cause CJ's got to make his prediction
All
or
right.
whatever.
What prediction? I have
Not
no
prediction. I mean, you know what I mean.
His expert review.
There you go. Yeah.
I rated a 9 out of 10.
Ooh, I like it.
Yeah.
Any like, what was like? Would you say brings it to the edge of where you would give it a 9 as opposed to what Paul and Kuro did, right?
Kimmy, I mean, she
Ah.
just look. I feel like she didn't do anything wrong. She just wanted to keep the peace. She wanted kindness. Had shaved ice parties. She just wanted kindness between the old people and the interns, and covering people with mouths, trying to not let other people see the murders. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. Just trying to keep the peace. Did it work? Somewhat, but on the end, everybody's dead except for one.
Hashtag protect Kimmy, as Brittany might say.
You can't see it, but I'm nodding as Brittany's talking. What she said.
I have a feeling we all will. As far as me, I'm not going to do a number. I will do a letter. Overall, getting the totality, undecided. I need to see all the episodes again in a row. So I will be.
Oh, Maki's gonna kill you.
She
Maki's
probably
gonna,
will.
Maki's gonna stab you.
She
Can
probably
we record that?
The thing is, it's like, if I wanted to, I would definitely give it above average. I definitely enjoyed it. I like the ambition that both Toonami and Production IG USA went to create this story, because it's definitely interesting. I wish we got a little bit more so that there wasn't as much info dump where you're kind of like trying to focus on that, but then all of a sudden the story goes on its drastic turn. I'm a sucker for real, like, old school cheap ass horror jump scare kind of things, because I love that feeling so much. And I'm stuck on wishing that we could have saw like a deranged face on Taka after he figured out the whole thing when he went mad. Like I would have loved that so much. And I don't think I really can appreciate the entirety of Housing Complex C unless I saw it all concurrently. I don't think I can be as fair in a review for it, whether it be positive or negative, unless I see it all together. And as Paul so eloquently said, it would have been interesting to see how this would have ran if it was a movie, right? Where there's like no breaks and it's just all straight through. I kind of want to watch it like that, because I think that's such a huge part for horror with me, where I don't generally watch horror shows. Like, I've never actually watched American Horror Story, so I'm not sure how the pacing and how things are separated, so I could really get an idea. The only type of kind of experience I've had with like legit horror from me was movies. Now, there are some horror series that that are in anime that I think have done a decent job. Another is obviously going to be the first one that comes to mind, and I think I might also have nostalgia blinders on for Another, because I haven't seen it in quite some time too. I've seen it. I've seen it, before, and there was some gruesome moments, like umbrella going into a character's eye. I was just like, oh, but like I kind of like that type of thing. So like, as I was mentioning, I don't know if I said it on this podcast or on a previous one that I was on, or if it was before I like the Saw movies. So that could kind of give you an example of something that I actually would watch, which is very extreme body gore, obviously, with what you see in those films. And so that's probably why my kind of viewpoint when it comes to these types of properties is like, oh, I want to see just something sick and twisted. And there are, like, I do enjoy psychological thrillers, because I do like the kind of like, oh, shoot, it was them. And then they're like murdering, and all that kind of stuff. I love that. I think that's awesome. And I kind of think that Housing Complex C has a lot of that. It's just because not only am I pay attention to that series, but I have to pay attention to Yashahime. I have to pay attention to now Made in Abyss soon, or, Primal, and all these other shows that are on the block, because I'm helping out with Brittany and Steven for social media stuff, which has been a ton of fun. As it has been when, it was myself, Steven, myself and Celia, myself, Steven, and Celia, right? Like, there's a lot of times where, like, I'm doing it more because it's a lot and I want to make sure I'm helping as best I can. So I think that I haven't been able to really get the full experience until, like, I don't have to worry about stuff anymore. So that's why the marathon, because marathons, we get to be a lot more lax with how we do our social footprints and whatnot on Twitter. So I can kind of just like turn the brain off, go through what I need to, get my situation all set up, and then I can really enjoy kind of what the story was trying to tell with Housing Complex C. You know, I know Maki's mad because she's like, I need to know how you rated CJ. And let's be honest, it's a production IG show. Have they ever missed? No.
No.
They haven't. I mean, you could probably give me a list and there might be a show or there too where I was like, oh, I didn't actually like that. But like, there shows that I know that they've worked on, I enjoyed immensely. You know, the one
very thoughtful.
the one that
series.
I'll always go to as like my top from them was Be the Beginning. I absolutely loved it.
Yeah.
It was so good. It was, and it had that psychological kind of thing with it. It wasn't definitely horror, but it had a lot of things that made you think, and I really liked that.
Mm-hmm.
And for Housing Complex C, it had that too, which is like awesome. That's what I want. I think my expectations of having it to be more of like ooh kind of thing, or like jumping at you, or like scaring you, or like seeing some twisted little demon gremlin show up in the background kind of being like, oh, I'm gonna murder you kind of thing. It's like, I think that's a little unfair. And the fact that I had that preconceived notion of what I would usually want to see in horror, I think it kind of, you know, blinded me in what Housing Complex C really is. So to be honest, I am definitely more on the undecided part of it, just because I think watching it week to week and then watching it fully, like, you know, all 4 episodes together, I think will definitely give me a much better feeling in how I can more accurately describe how the show is. Because the show really, if I was like to review it, right, I'd just be like, I have no idea what I really watched. And that's not necessarily a bad thing either, because it's more so in a sense of like, so the show really like distracted you from being able to articulate what was good, what was bad, what you needed, what you liked. And I'm like, yeah, because like I really don't know, you know. I loved Taka like figuring everything out. I enjoyed when the murdering started to be more rampant, you know. I wish there was a little more scary things, because like, I'm sorry, at the end of episode 2 when the like animal came out of the syrup for the snow cones and whatnot, I was like, that's it? That's not scary. Like, it's, you know, you don't want that, you know. No one wants to have a fly in their soup kind of deal. I was just like, that is a very bad fly in the soup. I'll take the check, please. We won't be leaving a tip. I'm out of here.
Thanks for the imagery.
Right, but it's one of those things where just like, that wasn't scary, you know. And I wanted that scary type of thing that makes me not want to turn off the lights and go to bed. I love that. Oh, do I love it, love it. So I want to rewatch it. I want to be able to really adequately grade and rate it in a sense. But as I said, it is a production IG show, and it's a show that like Maki put her love, affection, heart, everything into it, as she does with every show.
And she is a treasure.
Right, she's one of the best in the business. Like,
she's a treasure.
Like, how can I easily be like, oh, it was awful? Like, no, it was good. It was really good. I just want to be able to really kind of, like, think of it this way, Paul, as a great example. Someone comes up to me and asks right now, oh, how'd you like Housing Complex C? I wouldn't really be able to answer it. I want to be able to actually answer it. You know what I mean? Besides just saying, it good, Toonami show, unga bunga kind of thing. I want to be able to articulate it a little bit better and kind of find the more nuances. And like, that's why I really liked when Kuro was able to really dive into the series, because a lot of the stuff that I don't know, she does. And it's very good at complementing, to be able to kind of figure out how to best kind of, I don't know, explain how the series works as a whole. Because it does. It's fun. I like that Toonami, you know, continues to do originals like this, and kind of just like, hey, fuck it, we're gonna try something different, because this is extremely different.
Yeah.
And to me, it's I don't know, it's just kind of like one of those things where, yeah, I really like the fact that we had something like this on Toonami. I'm very thankful for it.
So
I want more.
Let's see.
I want more. Where's my Housing Complex D? Where is the D?
Okay.
Let's see. So
be careful on this podcast asking where the D is.
Listen, Kuro.
We get the wrong responses, and we're not responsible.
Give me my prequel of Housing Complex B.
So let's see.
Where's the B?
See. So the hashtag on Twitter is going to be Maki killed CJ. Okay.
Yes. Maki, make it quick and painless. I'm ready.
I just want to address one of the comments you made about horror. I think you actually brought up something really interesting, and that is like what actually makes good horror. It is such a much more nuanced genre than I think sometimes we realize, because it's not, sometimes it's the things that scare us, sometimes it's the things that shock us, or sometimes it's things that it's the mystery and unraveling the mystery. So in this case, I felt like a lot of it was focused on the shock value. They had a lot of jump scare. They had a lot of twists. You know, they had a villain who we thought was not a villain, etc. Mm-hmm. So it was much more based in the shock value and not in abject fear. And again, what is fear? For the individual, it can vary so much. Like, I remember being a kid and watching The Omen, and I was terrified by The Omen. Because
I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, that was the scariest thing to me, and I was convinced that there was some element of reality in that, because they were playing off of fears, faith-based fears, which is a really great way to scare people. You know, when they have any kind of religious affiliation, you pick up what they're terrified of on their religion, and then you put it in a film. You know, so fear is a lot harder to pinpoint with shows, but for this case, it was definitely more shock value, and I was genuinely surprised over and over again as the series progressed.
I think I equate this series more to like The Purge when I think about it. And it's one of those types of things, and I don't know if I would call that horror. I mean, for God's sakes, we had a conversation about the Terminator's horror adjacent, so I'm not here to judge on what is or isn't on that.
You really missed out on a conversation, man.
No, you did not. Paul and I were definitely like, what are we doing?
Did you guys tangent? I've talked to you about the tangent.
No. We were pretty good. The only tangent was a sports one, which we won't get into.
These boys tangent so much. It is the worst. We have to keep them on track. Me
and Sketch are the only two that can have our tangents together, okay?
Right. But
we hold hands.
I do think Kuro is right that I was more looking at it in a very like finite way when it's a little bit more nuanced than that, which is a fault on me, not the show.
No, I don't think it's a fault. I think that's actually an important perspective of what expectations are when you put the brand of horror to a show or a film. Because what are the expectations of anybody when you say that? It means something different.
Maybe I just like dogging myself.
I think it's a challenge to whoever the creator is to tell a story that can appeal to a wide enough audience that will have these varying expectations.
Do you want to read some talkbacks with me?
Yeah.
Well, you're gonna have to give them to me. But
no. Well, okay, sorry. I what I mean by that is that I'll read talk. Do you want to hear some talkbacks? I do like talkbacks.
I love talkbacks. I'm excited to hear.
Unless you don't want talkbacks, Paul.
We get them for both episodes, right?
I mean, I want talkbacks. I'm confused at why all of a sudden people want to do talkbacks.
Oh,
we watched them.
No. Well, I'm gonna give out a secret. I just wanted to do a segue, I guess. That was just me doing a segue. I'm sorry, Paul.
I like when we have talkbacks. I like hearing from fans because it's not like you can remember what 100 people are tweeting at any moment. Talkbacks are a great way to put your thoughts about a show, and this is a little PSA in case you were afraid to do a talkback. Don't be afraid. Anything you've tweeted, you've already put it out there. So just add a little hashtag to it, and then we can talk about it here on the podcast because we're very interested in what y'all think.
So we can actually do talkbacks on the podcast for once.
Yeah, otherwise it's just our mouth noise.
Listen. Maybe you can be afraid of this one just because it's a horror show. But we will start with our very own Stephen Oz, who replied. So, here we go. It was a fantastic series, going to take subsequent watches to get all the details. This is a must for anyone who love horror anime. And I don't necessarily disagree with that. I think it is really good. The thing I definitely agree with is rewatches are needed. I definitely need to.
It was an accurate talkback.
Paul, how do you feel? A staff member even gave us one.
I know, poor Steven.
About time. About time.
Paul's like, you guys do nothing for me. Oh Lord! All right, next up is from Journeyman15 or at Journeyman15. I was very impressed that after all the talking revelation that they had to kick it into high gear, action horror consequences, the ending was not disappointing, all things considered. Not the greatest thing, but indeed was a terrific warm up for Uzumaki. Oh, I think I was putting some Uzumaki like expectations onto Housing Complex C with the horror aspect for it, because ooh, that one has me hyped.
Yeah, you've been hyped for that for a while.
V-Lord has been the Uzumaki person for that, but Paul,
I feel bad for him because now he's going to be so hyped that then nothing will live up to his expectations.
Maybe not. Paul, would you agree with that talk back?
Yeah, I would agree with that. I'm especially glad that they're taking the time to flush that series out and not just being like, here it is, enjoy.
Oh, right. Yeah. Right. All right. Our next talkback comes from at Severing Faith. I was actually surprised to see the whole family of that glasses girl, aka Yuri, were nuts. Because of that short preview beforehand, I was under the impression that it was going to be just the father. I look forward to rewatching it so I can understand it better.
Nice.
Not bad at all. And yeah, it does kind of stink that the learning about the father was a little bit spoiled for everyone, and like that's on Toonami. You know, they cut it, they edit that. I would have kind of, I don't know how I would change it. Maybe they could have done what they did for like the Primal Theory episode of like we can't show anything kind of thing with it. So it's definitely something that I wonder about with other people, and yeah, who knows, right? Like maybe a rewatch will be able to make it kind of feel just as exciting. I don't know. We'll find out for sure. All right, our next talkback comes from at BloodDistur20. This was honestly my reaction to the last episode. Still enjoy the show for what it was, but I'm still questioning the ending. And let's see what it's like, give it to me. Okay. So apparently that's a good endorsement. I really like that. All right, and our next talkback is from, their name is a little too long. Daisu1 at Daisu113. Like the Yog Sothoth angle, would like more info to Yuri's family and the Cthulhu dagger. I hope there be more support for Complex C. Was it very close to what was written in the scenario? Some stuff omitted? And I guess, like me, I was this user was a bit confused on all the like lore aspect and would definitely like to learn more about the family. And I don't know about you guys.
Clearly knowledgeable. And that's tricky too, because then you don't want your own knowledge of a written mythology to like supersede what the series is trying to do. So that I get it.
Right. And wouldn't you guys wouldn't mind learning more about Yuri's family? I know I would actually. I think that part would be really interesting.
Why are they fucking nuts? Sorry.
Mm-hmm.
That would have been great to know. What made them like weird worshippers of trying to resurrect a dead god and murder people to do it? Like I get that they're I guess they're supposed to be descendants of the fish people and all that, but this is so typical. Every single horror film or series I've ever seen forgets to give you information, and this is one of those instances where I was like, what is with Yuri's family? How did they become this way?
Paul, it's as you said, fish is happening.
Yes. Why does the fish keep happening?
Right. Oh, that was really funny, actually. All right. Next up comes from, another Kuro. Oh, it's a fake Kuro. It's Kuro Gaming. What is it? Kuro Gaming YT.
Yay! Shout out to the other Kuro. Woo!
And they tweeted, and the lone survivor was Khan, the gentle giant. What a champ. We love Khan, and it's so funny. No one believed the first episode. No one believed that the first episode Khan was the bad guy.
Because he's not. He is also a treasure. He just wanted to protect Kimmy. Okay, we didn't even talk about how great it was that she wrote a note saying, here's what you need to do to get right with your own God. Like, she respected his own faith and respected that Khan was trying to protect her and everything. And that was super, super cool. I loved that.
True, but don't forget, she's a god, so she probably knows his God.
You know, but like buddies. it was an element of benevolence and thoughtfulness that she she was so dismissive about humans in her later speech, but then you remember like, oh, she said she protected him just like he protected her.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, that's great. I love that. Khan was great.
He definitely was. I definitely appreciated having a character like him in the anime. And our next talkback is at Jones K. Irving. Love the cosmic horror twist. Did not see that coming when it came to the Cthulhu references. Perfect. So I see that's Kuro's alt account. We found it. Got him.
That was the same hot take I had. Love it, love it, love it.
And our last talkback comes from Muta625 Muta. I was happy that Khan survived. I didn't want anything bad to happen to him. Well, I mean, bad things did kind of happen to him in that final episode. So, like,
he got stabbed and a bunch of shit.
Yeah, it wasn't necessarily great for him. And I will say, the one thing that I at least called right, I knew the mom, there was something wrong with her. I knew it so easily. That one was
Why was she throwing up? I thought she was pregnant.
I did too. I was like, oh, she's pregnant. How?
Now we know that she was puking up moss, probably.
Yeah, pretty much. So
wait, what?
Moss.
What? Wait. How do you get that she's puking up moss?
So did you?
I'm thinking, and Paul, let me see if I got this with you. I'm thinking like her organs were like being disintegrated inside of her, and then throwing up the like the discarded organs, kind of thing. That's what my.
So remember in the end where her daughter was starting to puke up moss.
I forgot about that.
Yeah,
I thought that was just because of like the moment, the exposure to, No, I was convinced she was pregnant.
Oh,
you should be more observant.
No, oh, you should. No, for me it was more so. I'm thinking
anything. I was not the only one aside from Brittney too. If Brittney got it too.
But Brittney's new, so we have to give her a pass.
What?
No.
No, she had an appropriate reaction to a woman puking with no context. That is the natural reaction to that.
I feel like my first reaction would be like, oh, someone had a bender.
Yeah, well, unless there's alcohol involved, that would be what I would respond to.
Right. Well, that is it. I hope you enjoyed our conversation about housing complexity. And Brittney, I hope you enjoyed your first ever podcast with us.
I did.
Now,
well,
yes, Paul.
I was going to say, by the way, before because I know Maki will be listening to this. Maki, give us some more series, please.
Yes.
24 episode series.
Make it 100 episodes. I don't.
No,
care.
no. We don't need to do that. 24 episodes.
I'm with CJ. I'll take 100 or 200 or just anything. Just keep giving us more. We love it.
Yes.
Can I do the cleanup tonight? Or are you going to speak?
Oh, I have. Oh no, I have it. I actually have the actual one that Sketch sent me too. But I did want to say, Brittney, I'm glad that you could join us, and hopefully you'll be able to catch us on more episodes because this was fun.
Woohoo!
And then you'll get to meet other members, and of Toonami Faithful, and then you can be like, "Oh, what did I sign up for?"
Yeah, I'm sorry in advance.
Brittney's got great hot takes. We need more.
Yes. Now, I have the house cleaning, and it's right in front of me. I'm ready to go. I know Paul's actually really good at this, but I always enjoy doing it because it makes me sound professional. So.
You can do my house cleaning, Paul.
Listen.
Hey, whoa.
Listen.
Whoa. Wait a minute.
That's
right. Sexual harassment. We're going to have an HR meeting with Darrell
later. Oh, come.
So,
you said way worse things on this podcast.
We're not talking about me. Anyways, continue, CJ.
You can email us at podcast@toonamifaithful.com. You can follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/ToonamiFaithfulPodcast and on Twitter at Toonami Podcast. You can listen to our podcast on just about everything, including iTunes, Google Music, Spotify, Anchor. Literally, if it hosts podcasts, you will be able to find the Toonami Faithful Podcast. You can find every episode of our podcast to stream online at soundcloud.com/ToonamiFaithful. And do not forget to get the latest news on Twitter, following us at Toonami News, where you can read all our news articles, view our reviews, and all the other stuff that we get to do at Toonami Faithful. And do not forget that you can subscribe to the Toonami Faithful Pass on Patreon at patreon.com/ToonamiFaithful. We have behind-the-scenes stuff that we can put there, interviews up there, all kinds of stuff. It supports us to be able to do what we enjoy doing, which is bringing you the best in Toonami news.
Yes.
That's that's the name. We gotta make sure we fit
That's
that into
us.
the name, and that'll do it. So let's wrap this up. Paul, where could our lovely listeners find you?
Oh, you're gonna do me first.
I am gonna do you. The head honcho goes first.
Well, I'll just make it simple. You can find me on Twitter at Pescrillo, and if you email me, it's pescrillo@toonamifaithful.com.
Send them your horror adjacent titles.
My horror adjacent titles?
No, I'm selling them to send you your horror adjacent titles.
Yeah, they should do that. Spam Paul with your horror adjacent titles on Twitter.
Yeah,
you heard it, Twitter.
Kuro, where can our listeners find you?
You can find me writing articles on ToonamiFaithful.com in case you missed the first 2 episodes, but for some reason decided to listen to this podcast anyway. You can see a recap of and review of the first 2 episodes on the website. You can also find me on Twitter at Happy Kuro Kitty, and I love feedback. So please provide feedback, and always be nice, be respectful, and you will be spammed with a lot of cats.
True. And Kuro, maybe they just like to hear our voices, right?
Our mouth noise, you mean?
Yes, our mouth noises. Brittney, first time here. Where could our listeners find you?
Oh, you can find me anywhere, but mostly on Twitter at SheBeRoyalty. It should be easy to find. Anywhere else, just hit me up.
And also, she does see what you guys post on the Toonami Faithful Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, all those accounts. So be nice. Be nice, yes. or she'll get
They're mostly nice.
She'll get the band hammer ready. And
she never saw the video that's pinned to the Twitter. So
true, or at least when it first.
CJ, where can they find you?
Playing Splatoon 3.
I knew you were gonna say that.
Yes. Well, hey, it's better than Genshin, right?
What?
Well, because Splatoon 3 isn't predatory. Anyway, you can find me on Twitter at CJ Maffris, and pretty much just there. I do my weekly This Week from Toonami articles. You can check out the Toonami documentary that we did, What Toonami Means to Me, still up on our Facebook and our YouTube pages. We're getting close to 2-year anniversary for it, which is really cool. So that's really nice. And hopefully you're able to check out all the stuff that we do, whether it be interviews. We have more Housing Complex C stuff hopefully planned. Because honestly, I think it's very comforting that we were able to get an original that really seemed to resonate with fans, that really like. I haven't seen this much Universal, oh my god, oh cool, since Fena. And sadly, we won't be seeing Fena as much as we would like. So,
well, and to follow up on what CJ said, I was actually out of town. I was in partying in New Orleans, cough. But I briefly checked Twitter while the episode 4 was playing, and the reactions from Twitter were so fun to see. Everyone was really hype and excited and reactive, and it was awesome. And so it was clearly that this show had a fairly positive reception, and Brittney can probably speak to this better than I can since she monitors the social media.
Exactly.
Yeah, it was pretty sad and heartbreaking.
It definitely was after when we saw how it started to how it ended. Very, very sad. But that'll do it for us. Hopefully you enjoyed this episode. Hopefully you enjoyed listening, and do not forget to share and make sure you tell all your friends to keep up with what's going on with Toonami through the Toonami Faithful podcast. But till then, we will see you for our next episode. Thanks for listening, everyone. Bye.
Peace.
The secret of the day we try and miss in pretending no one told you what we are chasing to save the fading, catching the voice deep.
6th layer of the abyss.
It was like something from another world.
Rico and her crew have struck gold.
The Golden City, where things that are beyond human live.
But the ruined city isn't what it appears.
Are those human body parts?
And the hollows that live nearby are guarding a horrible secret.
Wow, what is this place? It's kind of like a market.
Yes, at the market, human children garner the most value. You would have a very good value. For instance, your eyes, skin, or fat.
Come on, stop it!
We didn't know it yet. That people could never return from this area and maintain their human form.
Season 2 of Made in Abyss premieres next Saturday at 12:30 a.m.
Time to run! Right now, guys!
Fear runs deep. Only Toonami on Adult Swim. On the next all-new episode of Yashahime, Princess Half-Demon.
Say your prayers, Zero! Playtime is over.
Yashahime, Princess Half-Demon. Next Saturday at 1 a.m. Only Toonami on Adult Swim.